The most value you bring to a consumer when they discover that only 25% of the listings are selling every month, you're preparing them for what is possible and you're showing them the problem they need to solve.
Welcome back to the Full Out Real Estate Agent. I'm your host, Mark Faris, and we have a treat for you guys today. If you are a real estate agent in Canada and probably even the US as well, you probably heard of who I'm going to be interviewing today. It's Richard Robbins. Richard Robbins is a real household name in the training industry for real estate agents. Richard has spoken live to over 250,000 people worldwide. He's coached over 20,000 coaching clients, and he's made a real impact in the industry, beginning as a top real estate agent, and then he transitioned into training. Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Mark, my friend, it's wonderful to be here with you.
Well, it's always a treat speaking with you. You're a real pro, and I have a lot of respect for you and your wife Sue. I know you guys are like the power couple. And, today I think we're going to really dive into, a little bit of your background, which I'd like to start with. And then I'd like to dive into as well, what some of your most successful, all of your clients that you're coaching right now, what are some of the things that they're doing and some of the things that you see as key differentiators with successful real estate agents from the ones that just don't make it. So we're going to get into all of that today. Maybe we could start with your beginning, Richard, because I know a little bit about your backstory of your transition from being a top real estate agent, making great income, transitioning to the training side of it. So maybe you can go back and share your origin story with us.
Sure. Well, Cole's notes real fast. I was 24, living in Peterborough, Ontario. I was working for my dad, actually. Before that, I got my real estate license. So July 15th, 1985. It's hard to believe this July of next year, it'll be 40 years. Wow. I started selling real estate in Peterborough. I did that for 3 years. And then I don't know what happened, but I was getting a little bored, I guess, with Peterborough maybe. You're 27 years old, want to spread your wings. So I ended up moving to Markham, where actually I still live today, and I opened a real estate company. And I had a brokerage right up till 1998. So basically, if you think about it, started 85, brokerage 88, and then 10 years, had the brokerage to 98, and I sold it. And then I started Richard Robbins International. And the whole idea when I sold the brokerage was, at the time, we had the highest production per agent of any brokerage in our trading area. Mm. And we used to do a lot of training and a lot of coaching. And I thought to myself, well, actually, one of my agents said to me, well, you do this for us. Why don't you do this for more people? And that was the seed of the dream, believe it or not. Her name was Nancy Etchie. I'll never forget. And then I thought, well, boy, yeah, maybe I could, right? So I ended up selling the brokerage and started RRI, or Richard Robbins International, with the intention of doing the same thing we were doing with our agents, but just for a much larger market. So it was no master plan, Mark. It just kept, evolving, and you've seen these opportunities. And, I'm one of those guys, I'm an opportunist. When I see a cool opportunity, I just want to get on it.
It's so interesting. Sometimes, getting around the right people, that's why it's so important, because they make a suggestion. With Joanna, it was actually a suggestion that got me out of hockey into real estate. Joanna said one day, you don't have to keep playing hockey if you don't want it. And sometimes it's just like that one suggestion is what changes everything. You said a seed was planted. Yeah. So, that's a key with getting around really great people that can make those suggestions and those key insights. So that changed the trajectory. And then when was it that you said, you know what, I'm going to do this as a full-time thing right now and transition from the brokerage? Was it like, okay, we're going to do that from day one, or did it slowly transition into, okay, we're becoming even more successful at this, like we're going to transition over?
Yeah, what I did, so technically I sold the brokerage in 96.
Okay.
But I had a 2-year contract that I had to stay with them, and I had a 2-year payout. So that happened from 96 to 98. And between 96 and 98, I really wasn't selling, even though I no longer had a brokerage and I was working for the company that bought me. I was more preparing to start the company that I have now. Mm-hmm. So what I started to do during that period of time was I started to do some broker talks. So I would go into some brokerages and I would do these talks. And I had one called The Art of Prospecting. I had another one called The Art of Listing Property. I think it was something like that. And back then, believe it or not, I was actually faxing. If that's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
I was faxing, the title of a talk with 3 bullet points and what they're walk away with to the brokers. And then I'd follow up with a phone call after, because all these talks were free. I was just practicing, really, in some ways, because I knew that from a marketing standpoint, I thought speaking was the best thing I could do. Like, I could pick up the phone and phone one-on-one, but if you think about it, if I could get in front of 10 or 12 or 14 or 20 people, it was sort of like I was doing a sales presentation for 20 people instead of one. And that was my theory, that if I could talk about what I had done with my agents in this talk and, have it infused with motivation, get them excited about the possibilities, that they would be interested in one-on-one coaching, which many of them were. And that's how it all started. And then in 1988, once my contract was up, then I just went full-time into this.
So smart. And so you got your reps in, speaking with agents, and you're setting a bunch of seeds out there as well. What I like about that approach, Richard, is not only the practice side of it, but it's this whole rule of reciprocity, which is really big right out there right now. There's a lot of talk on that. It's like give first before receiving, give a lot of value, abundance of value first. And has that principle come back, and is that a principle that you've ridden kind of the coattails of that all the way along from the beginning up until now? Because I know you're a big giver in the industry as well.
Yeah, we have one of our philosophies is giving starts the receiving process. So it's something that we live by as a company. It's something that we, work with our clients. It was so funny, that you mentioned that. There was an agent just in my office literally 20 minutes ago, and she's one of our coaching members. And I won't say her name, just, I don't know if you want me talking about this, but she was dropping us off gifts, Christmas gifts to the whole office. She had a gift for every person here in headquarters, right?
Yeah.
And she came up, and I was sitting in the office, and I got talking to her, and, she was all excited, and I brought you stuff over and all that sort of thing. And she goes, I still remember, because she's been coaching with us for 6 years. And she goes, I still remember the first event I ever went to. You mentioned don't sell, serve. She goes, I'll never forget that. And she said, then you started the giving, the receiving, and she goes, it completely changed my life. And so, yes, we try to live it. We do our best. But most importantly, we really try to help our coaching members and anybody you speak to understand that. Because what I believe in, Mark, is I believe in not transactional relationships. I believe in transformational relationships.
That's good.
Yeah, like when I see a transactional relationship, okay, we meet, do a sales presentation, I give you what you want, you give me some money, and away we go. And I always say that I want 1 + 1 = 10 somehow. And I don't always know how that's going to happen. Like even the relationship that you and I have over the years, we've had, you've been on my podcast, we've had conversations, we, help each other out when we can. It's more than a transaction. And what I love about transformational relationships, that means everybody's going to get more than they thought from the relationship.
Yeah.
And when people get more than they thought from the relationship, then what ends up happening is you build this sales force around you. Because now, those people want to promote you.
Yeah.
Because they believe in you and they become advocates, not just loyal, but they're advocates. And, it's one of the greatest ways in the world to build a sales team is to create transformational relationships.
Yeah, that's great. And maybe we can transition now. I mean, we're going to build on and stack on top of that foundational truth that Richard shared, which I think is a game changer if you come from that approach, transformational, which is smart. But you wrote a book called Deliver the Unexpected. It was a great book. I remember reading it a number of years ago. And one of our core values on a real estate team is wow, right? And so it's basically, going the extra mile, delivering the unexpected. I love the title of the book. How have you taken that transformational relationship mindset and now you stack on top of that, deliver the unexpected? Maybe you could share, I don't know if there's a story or some kind of key insights from your book that really take that relationship to the next level in regards to giving more than expected?
Yeah, well, deliver the unexpected was one of the business principles in the book. And we used, the one of the 7 principles as a title because I thought it was the core teaching of the book.
Mm.
Because deliver the unexpected to me is about creating transformational relationships.
Yeah.
You could have called it Giving Starts the Receiving Process, but not a good title. You know what I mean? So we went with Deliver the Unexpected. And, we have in our company, we have a sort of, it's a Google Doc that we use. And every week, our HQ team here in the office, not my coaches, but the HQ team, every week, they're supposed to deliver the unexpected to somebody. So we actually keep track of it all, right? And that could be sending a video, it could be sending flowers. An example of that was, this was a big example, and I know not everybody would want to do this because it was fairly costly, but it'll just show you sometimes the work we go to. So Dana Stroud, who's our director of client experience, she heard one of our coaching members, it was their wedding anniversary. She heard it from another member just through the grapevine. So she found out that they were going away for the weekend, the couple, and they're going to spend a nice weekend. I think they're going to Niagara Falls, if I remember correctly. So what she did is she somehow got a hold of the agent's assistant and found out where they were staying and had flowers and champagne in the room before they arrived from us. Well, that client was so blown away. First of all, how did you know it was my anniversary? Second of all, how the hell did you know where we were staying? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So you had to go to some work to do that. And as I said, that's a big example. And not everybody's going to want to spend that or go to that. But, I look at it and say, this was, 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And, that client is still with us today, right? One of our biggest supporters in the world, probably responsible for 4 or 5 referrals a year, of new coaching members coming in. And I don't know. And it's almost fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
It's exciting.
I read this book. It was one of the strongest restaurateurs out there. It's called At Your Service. And he said that his approach is to collect dots and connect the dots.
Right.
So it's like, you got to be intentional in regards to finding these opportunities, but the magic comes in on connecting them. And that takes a little bit of work. And, it's one thing to do it once, but it's another thing to have an approach. That's why I like your approach within your ecosystem, your culture of tracking it as an ongoing thing. So you keep it top of mind. And that's where I think that's part of why coaching is really solid, because I think we need to be taught less than we need to be reminded. Yeah. And something like that, we've all heard of that before, that approach, right? But to do it on an ongoing basis, I think that's where you get the compounding effects of that.
Yes. And it's good for the team. And here's why, is because there's something, Mark, innate in every human being that when we give of ourselves to somebody else, it makes us feel good. God built us that way, right? That's like, right. In other words, right. You hold the door open for somebody, how's it make you feel? You buy somebody a coffee, how's it make you feel? You help somebody across the street. We can go on and on. Hold the elevator at the last moment, somebody trying to get on. How does it make you feel?
Yeah.
Because the giver gets the most.
That's right.
So imagine now you create a culture, whether you do it, but your staff is doing it as well. How does that make them feel? So
that's right. Yeah. And that's where it spills over to clients, right? And, if the team members are doing well, then, they're going to treat as a byproduct. It's like monkey see, monkey do type thing, right? So if they're getting treated well, the natural byproduct is going to be to treat, the clients really well. So right. I love it. And, to me, another thing we're big on is like a genuine love of people. I think that you have to have that as a kind of a foundational starting point to this, because if it's just, if it's a dollar transactional thing, people smell that. And so I think that's like a foundational truth, that when we look for people, we look for agents coming on our team, like you have to have that. There has to be like a genuine love of people. And that's actually been something that whenever we've had conversations, you've always been very like, giving and trying to help, whether it's like making a connection, or you should try this or that, coming from this place of like genuinely wanting to help. And I think I don't know if that's something you can train, Richard. I think I'm more of the approach, like, that's not something that if we're going to hire an agent, I don't want to like take a bet that I can get, they might be like a high producer, but they may not be a culture fit. I don't want to take that bet that I'm going to try and change them, because over time when they get stressed, they'll probably, go back to their kind of their, we'll call it their standard mode that they operate on. Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like that old saying, hire for attitude and train for skill.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a lot of truth to that. I think too many people hire for skill, and then they, try to change somebody's DNA.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, it's not that the people are bad. It's just that they don't get it. They were raised in a different environment.
Right.
And just think about it. If you're conditioned, if you're 30 years old and you've spent 20 years being conditioned one way, or 25 years,
yeah,
you get pretty strong beliefs in the way things are. And that's, I'm not saying it can't be changed.
Yeah.
But it's not something you're going to change in a week. Right.
So this is where, up until this point, I think it creates such a strong foundation for a real estate business. So let's get more into the tactical part of it now. So agents that are doing really well with you, what is the main differentiator in regards to maybe their day-to-day routine that the ones that are getting ahead in today's market, like, houses just aren't selling overnight, right? Like they were at the peak of the market. So what are the top agents doing, say, from a routine standpoint, that are being successful compared to the ones that aren't? Are there any kind of key insights that you could share that the ones that are being successful are doing?
Well, I think it's the same insight I've had since I started selling real estate July 15th, 1985. I'll never forget. My manager, Don Harriman, said to me, when I walked in that first day to the office, he looked at me and he goes, "How many leads do you have?" This is my first day at the office. Like, I've been there 10 minutes, right? And I'm sitting in his office, and "How many leads do you have?" I said, "Well, I don't have any." And he goes, "Well, guess what you're going to do all day?" I said, "Well, I don't know." He goes, "You're going to try to find a lead." Yeah. I'll never forget, right? Now, he was half joking, but he wasn't joking. He was trying to get a message to me. And the message was really simple. If you don't have any leads as an agent, then you should spend the rest of your time finding one, right? You got nothing to do anyway. Yeah. So I thought to myself, that was a really cool, insight that he taught me. And then he taught me, how to prospect and all that sort of thing. And I was back in the dialing for dollar days. We don't, do much of that anymore. But anyway, that's another story. So, but what I've discovered is this. I've discovered that a lot of salespeople, they get confused between marketing and sales. And sales is, we're having a conversation and I'm trying to set an appointment, or we're talking about the price in the neighborhood, or I'm sitting in front of you, and, that's sales. That's where we're sitting, and, you've shown some form of interest in buying or selling, and, I'm trying to influence you in a way by giving you all the information I can give you so that you can make an informed decision so you'll move forward. That's sales. Well, marketing is everything you do to get that opportunity. So the way I look at it is that we need to become brilliant marketers. Mm-hmm. And that's what most agents don't do that aren't highly successful. Mm-hmm. Because if you have a lead problem, you don't have a sales problem, you got a marketing problem. If you have a financial problem, a cash flow problem, you don't have a sales problem, you got a marketing problem. So that day in July 15th, 1985, Don Harriman, I'm using different words now, but he taught me to be a marketer.
Yeah.
And, it's like, and so many agents are so attached to the outcome, like they go on a listing presentation, they don't get it. And, it freaks them out for a week, right? They're down for a week. Well, that's because they don't have enough presentations.
That's right.
If I have one every day and I don't get the one on Tuesday, it's no big deal. I got another Wednesday. That's marketing. So when I look at all top agents, especially some of the bigger teams that we deal with, they all have lead generating or marketing systems in place, not just one. Like probably 5, maybe 6 when they get up into, say, 7-figure producers, right? That's right. And that's what all agents, salespeople, in my estimation, need to master. And when they master that, then they're just going to have more opportunities sitting in front of them. And as in real estate, more opportunities you have, the more sales you're going to do and the more money you're going to make.
No, that's great. And so if we're speaking to an individual agent is listening to this, it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. You got a team, you got all this support. I'm just an individual that is trying to get more sales, and I got a service, and I got to lead gen, and I don't have a big budget. What would you say to the individual agent out there that says, listen, I have a goal this year of maybe doing like a big goal of like maybe 40 sales, right? And I'm just, it's myself. What advice would you give that they should be doing on a day-to-day basis? Maybe some tactical suggestions on what to do.
Yeah, I would say, well, we teach something, our foundational teaching in terms of lead gen is called the lifetime referral system. And everybody knows people.
Yeah.
So I believe that what everybody should be doing is creating an organized real estate specific CRM, but all of the names of the people in that CRM that you know by first name. And you could literally just sit down and start writing it out on a pad of paper to get started. Okay. Then you're going to try to get all their contact information in there. You're going to put their social media handles in there. You're going to have everything. So now, because the content you have under that name, that is what's going to become most valuable to you. And it's said that the average human knows by first name 120 people.
Yeah.
But let's say it's 50. Let's just pick a number 50. Okay. If you know 50 people and you get them into that CRM, then you have to create what I call a value delivery system. So now how are you going to bring value to them throughout the year? And that's sort of part of the LRS that we teach. And what we know is that for every 100 people that you have in your database, you can get 20 transactions from that. And we've proven this thousands and thousands of times. So you get 200 people, that's 40 transactions. So that means that your primary objective every day is now to grow your database as well, because you're meeting people every day. And then we've developed a concept called triple play. And what triple play is where you're going to pick 3 means of communication. So one could be phone calls, one could be text, one could be emails. One could be, direct messaging on social media, whatever the case is. And then you're going to commit to, communicating, say, 5 calls, 5 emails, 5 texts, all proactive, all going to the people in your database. Right. And we've created all kinds of different scripts that you can use for that. But every communication you're going to have is bringing them value, offering something to them. Right. So this time of year, a lot of people are interested in, what's my home worth? Provide a complimentary CMA. You don't have to go to the house. You can send them the information and then set up a Zoom and talk to them about it. But the whole idea is that giving starts receiving. People are afraid to make phone calls. They're afraid to send a text. They're afraid to send an email because they're trying to get something.
Yeah.
But when we're trying to give something, there's no fear.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So that to me would be the very first thing I would do. If I was to start real estate today, brand new, that's the first thing I would do. I would create a database of people, get all their contact information. And then what I would do is I would create a value delivery system over the course of the year. How am I going to deliver value to these people? Right? Giving starts to receiving. And then how am I going to stay in touch with them? And then I would every week try to grow that database by 1 or 2 or 3 people. That's what I would do if I started today by myself with no help.
Yeah. So I love that. And it's simple enough to follow, which I think is a key trait for successful people is they don't overcomplicate it. And I love the fact that you pre-decide what you're going to do through the year so that then you just need to execute. Like it's straightforward. Just follow the plan. Right.
Yeah.
That's really smart. And, you're right in regards to everybody knows people. And, I would just add to that suggestion, whatever you think about, write down, but you can even go to your phone. Like you have so many contacts on your phone right now that it's easy to get that 50. It should be easy to get that list. Right. So
100%. Yeah, you go down, you go through all your phone contacts.
Yeah.
You can also do, Mark, which is a really good idea, is go to Facebook. Look at all your followers on Facebook.
Yeah.
Look at all your followers on Instagram, like TikTok, whatever you do, right? And I bet you a lot. That's Mark Faris. That's right. I'm going to put him on my list. I'm going to see what he's up to, how he's doing, right? And you know how easy you can create a list of people?
Yeah, I love that. It's smart, and like so. Faisal was so I interviewed him. Was it last week? And what he said was his only communication format primarily is on social.
Yeah.
And so for him, like pick your choice. And I like what you were saying. Like pick three: calls, texts, emails, social. That's smart. Yeah. And it reminds me of what Warren Buffett was saying. Like, take your three, write down all your priorities, circle the top three, and throw the rest of the list away.
Yeah.
And that it's true. That same rule applies to many things. And in this case, it's like pick your three. We'll call your weapons of choice, so to speak. Even though you hear what I'm saying, right? Like, keep that simple. So that's smart. Great advice. Richard.
Well, you talked about, let me say something about Faisal. He's like, first of all, the guy's brilliant. I love him. He's funny too. He's got a really great sense of humor. Yeah. But it's called social listening. Like if you think about with social media today, you could take 1 hour a day or 30 minutes a day, and you could go on and just look at all your feeds, right? And find out what people are doing. And then, so let's say it was your anniversary, Mark. You and Johanna were celebrating an anniversary. I see it on social media because maybe you're out somewhere having dinner, you know what I mean? And you're doing a little thing on social media. Then what I can do there, I could do a direct message to you on social media. But I think it would even be more valuable for me to send you a text if I had your cell number.
That's right.
And just send you, hey, congratulations, and just something like that. And that's a reach out. That's a proactive reach out where I've done something of value to you, right? For you. And so social listening is a brilliant way to give you a reason to reach out and say hello to people.
Yeah, no. And it's kind of fun to do too, right? Because for some people, it's like, I get a text and email feels like work, but with social, it's kind of like you're there anyways. Now I would just add one kind of caveat to that is just get your connections in and get off. Because otherwise you start scrolling, right? And next thing you know, you got 3 hours on. It's like, I'm prospecting. Richard told me it's prospecting. Where is that? You were doing that for 15 minutes and you were scrolling for the other, 2 hours and 45, right?
No, you got to do it very purposefully. Let me say that.
Yeah.
You're there for a reason, right? But I always say sometimes you need to take, online, offline to, have an impact on somebody, right? Especially if you know them a little better. And the interesting thing, Mark, if let's say I sent you a message like that and I'm a real estate agent and you decide to respond, one or two things are going to happen. One response is going to be, hey, thanks, Rich, so much. Really appreciate it. Hope your family's doing well. Happy holidays. Or the second response is, hey, Rich, thanks so much for your text. I'm wondering, what's the real estate market like right now? That's what happens because everybody wants to talk about real estate.
It's like, oh yes, that's exactly what I'm hoping for, right? Yeah. No, it's and this is where I do think like part of that communication rhythm, just making sure that you're establishing that you are the market expert and that it's not just like we're in the friendship zone. They do see you as like an expert and that you're sharp at what you're doing, so that they will respect you enough to be able to ask you that question. Right?
I agree. Yes.
So, Richard, do you find is there a certain amount of hours each day that you found like my take is prospect as long as you can until your abundance of leads, and then you still keep doing it, but just not as much. But have you found there's this set rhythm of certain hours every day? Is there times of the day that you recommend to your students to be able to do this to be prospecting?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in do appointments with yourself in the morning and appointments with others in the afternoon. So what I mean by that is that our discipline is going to be dependent on how much energy we have. As we get tired, we lose discipline. If you think about it, what we plan in the morning 9 times out of 10 will get done. But what we plan in the afternoon, unless it's an appointment with somebody else, is tough because we're tired, right? And so if the appointments with yourself, to me, would be like, for me personally, it's like, I spend about an hour and a half every morning, reading and having a coffee and doing my thing, right? I call it, review and reflection time. And then I spend the next hour working out or so, exercise, and I go down to the gym and I do my little routine. And then I head to the office. That's sort of my morning, right? I don't have kids at home anymore, so a little more difficult if you have kids at home, but I'm an empty nester. And then for an agent, I always say, so the appointment with yourself is exercise. For me, reading, coffee, R&R time, going over my goals. And then the rest of the morning, have that as appointment setting time. So what you're going to do in the morning is, again, proactively, reach out. So maybe you're going to follow up on your leads, whether you do that through email, text, or phone call, whatever you want to do. Maybe you're going to do some social listening on social that we just talked about. Maybe you're going to, make 5 phone calls, 5 texts, 5 proactive emails. But your whole focus in the morning is the appointment with yourself, right? Where you're focused on marketing opportunities. And then never book. And when I say never, I know there's exceptions to the rule, Mark. We all know that. But if you're going to book an appointment with somebody else to do a CMA, to show a property, to do a listing presentation, to do that in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because even though we don't have as much energy in the afternoon as we do in the morning, and maybe our willpower will be slightly less in the afternoon, but if it's with somebody else, we'll always show up.
That's so true.
Right?
Yeah, that's so true.
But if it's with ourself, like I'm going to, do my lead follow-up at 3:00 in the afternoon. Well, you say, well, if I plan it at 9 or 10 or 3 in the afternoon, which one has a better chance of getting done?
Yeah.
It's going to be the morning.
Yeah, that's right.
So set yourself up for failure, set yourself up for success in your schedule.
Yeah. Brian Tracy wrote a good book, Eat That Frog. And
right.
It talks very much about that. And for me, there's a good book Carey Nieuwhof wrote. He talks about At Your Best, and where he talks about different zones for working, your ability to work. Some people work really well in the evening. For me, it's like between 5 a.m. and in like 10:30, 11 o'clock. That's my like go to like focus time. So I don't book appointments with other people at that. It's only in the afternoon, but the morning, that's like where I unplug and I just do all my focus work for that first half of the day. And then the back half is pretty much like appointments and all the rest of it. What you said is so true. Like if it's booked with somebody else, you will show up. You have to show up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's really smart. What would you say is the big difference between top producers and ones that aren't successful from coming from a point of mindset? So, how do the top producers think differently than the ones that maybe just aren't cutting it?
When I get around top producers, it's funny because I was recently in Naples, Florida, like 2 weeks ago, and I was sitting with 20 of sort of the 0.001% of realtors in North America, right? Like, I mean, they were very, very, very high producers. And I did a little presentation on succession planning with them. But anyway, what I found so interesting being in that room is the energy was so high. And when I feel energy in a room, I think there's hope of a better future. People are focused on possibility. Right? All they see is opportunity and possibility. Like, oh, imagine if we did that. Oh, imagine if we did that. Oh, that's really cool, man. If I just change that. This one idea I had, I brought up in the room, and we're sort of doing a brainstorm. It wasn't just like a talk. I was sort of throwing out these questions, and we're sharing really cool ideas. And the one guy jumped out of his seat, and he goes, so excited. He goes, Rich, you gave me such a good idea. I can't wait to get back to work to implement that. And I'm going, are you kidding me? Like, wow. Like they look at it and they can't wait to execute. Like, it's amazing. When I see, people that produce at a lower level, they don't seem to have that same level of energy, of excitement, of possibility. It's almost they're seeing the problem instead of the opportunity, if you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And they can keep themselves so busy doing a bunch of stuff, right, that is not moving in the direction of their dreams and goals. And they're caught up in this state of busyness rather than being highly productive. And the ability of these top performers to execute.
Yeah.
And execute fast, Mark.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like they're not waiting till Monday. They're calling their office and they're going to get that done this afternoon.
Yeah.
Right.
This is gold. How you shared that, like the top producers are hope dealers, and that rubs off clients. They feel it.
Oh yeah.
And it inspires them to take action. I think that the best salespeople are some of the most enthusiastic. I mean, great listeners, but they're enthusiastic and they're hope filled. They're a glass half filled.
Yes.
Versus half empty. And this is such an interesting concept, Rich, is that it's the same as they're both true. If you fill up a glass halfway full, right? Yeah. There's a certain segment of the population that is looking at the empty part of it and saying, "Oh, I only have a half a glass of water; it's half empty." And then you get others saying, "Oh, that's half full. Like that's great. This is wonderful." But it's the exact same evidence. It's exactly the same scenario. And so that's where your story, where the top producer got up and they saw that, where maybe a low producer would say, "Oh yeah, that's interesting," but then they would see the other side of why it wouldn't work. Right. Yes. And then I love what you said as well about like the fast execution. There's like an urgency with execution that's unlike anybody else, right? It's like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get this done right away. I'm going to get a fast feedback loop instead of doing a bunch of research. Their research is like doing it quickly and then getting real feedback, real data, shifting and then going back at it. Even if they fail, they're going to approach it from a different angle.
Right. Because it's like they know that they can't fail. They're just going to learn and grow. Right. And you're right. They're going to learn. You'll learn more from taking action than you ever will from anything else in the world. Right. Mm-hmm. But some people, it's like they get ready to get ready to get ready to get ready. Right. And well, I got to have dinner and then I got to get cleaned up. And then and next thing you know, the whole idea is forgotten.
It's such an interesting, when you start digging deeper in on that, it's like, what is that? Why is there the innate kind of fear of not getting it right on the first go? And it's interesting. I think it starts with schooling of, like you got to get straight A's in every course. And if you get one test, you're at the low mark, you're out. Whereas definitely in real estate, but business overall is, you take action, you fail, you go back at it, and there's no sort of training like that in school, right? It's very much like, get out and then you got to get thrown in. And this is where I found that we've had some really intelligent people apply to be on our team, PhDs, Rich, MBAs. And I'm not saying everybody is like this, but the challenge that I found was some of them that came on our team was they were doing exactly what you just said, getting ready to get ready. Or they were trying to figure out a better way before they even acted on it. And they'd come back after a week or two and they'd say, okay, how did those presentations go? It's like, well, I'm thinking I'm going to do it this way and this way. I'm like, but how many times did you do it? It's like, well, no, I just haven't done it yet. Like I'm tweaking, and it's just like, just do it. Do it this way. Stop thinking. Put all that energy into execution of something that's a proven model. And basically, get that feedback loop. I think that's a big differentiator. And the ones that take action, they learn faster and they just get further faster. Yeah.
They're incredible opportunists. Like they'll see an opportunity and they jump on it. Right. And then a week later, they might look and say, oh, that's not quite working. No problem. Right. Like we're going to can that, or we're going to do it this way. But they're opportunists. They move very fast. They get honestly, the excitement in their eyes when they come up with an idea. Like I was watching the room and I'm going, wow, they get so excited, right? And these are all multi-million producers, right? Like, big numbers. And I was really inspired by it. It was a good reminder for me. And I do think a lot of it has to do with energy. They all have such good energy. I've always said that, jokingly, of course, but I say, when you go on a listing presentation, you got to have enough energy that, the client thinks you're going to live long enough to get the home sold. Right? Because you walk in there, I'm going, no, walk in and be, man, I'm so excited to be here, right? Be excited about the house, be excited about the opportunity, be excited about life. It works, it sells, right?
Well, and definitely, I think, when you're working with a buyer, that's goes without saying. Of course, you want to be enthusiastic about the house you're showing.
Yeah.
But what we found, Rich, is that, when we're going in on competition, there's a lot of feedback we get from clients where the last 5 agents that we were competing against went in and they ripped the house up, and they were negative about the market. Yeah. They were negative about the house. And, with us, we'll go and point the features out and some of the things that we're going to use to sell. And I think that mindset shift is very refreshing, that when a client is coming in and they're interviewing, that's a key differentiator there for you. If you have to be sold on what it is you're selling, and yes. Top business people that are selling their house, they know that. And yes. So they want to hire somebody that is sold 100% on the house, even if it needs a lot of work. They yes. have a completely different spin on how they're going to do it. And they can enthusiastically cast the vision to the client of what they're going to be casting to buyers.
Yes. Well, if you can't sell somebody's house to themselves, how are you going to sell it to somebody else? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the reason, I was reflecting on why that's done a lot of times with agents. And I think in general, that's done because by the time it gets to the pricing side, because maybe they beat them up and they kind of pointed all the things that's wrong with it, they think they're going to get it for a lower price. But I think that I think the client has a good understanding anyways with what the pricing will be, especially if you sit down and you show the data first. Yeah. Yes. I think, most sellers are pretty reasonable if you explain it in a very succinct, clear way of what's actually been selling in the market, right? So yeah. I think that's really important, I think, is to not try and beat them up, sell on the features and be excited about that, because otherwise you may not even get the business. Probably won't.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's great. So we got some tactics there. We got mindset, which is, being a hope dealer. I love that. Yeah. That's really good insight there on that.
And it's legal, by the way.
Yeah, and it's legal. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, so now differentiation is a big thing that I really believe. If you're an agent out there, do your best to differentiate yourself so you stand out.
Yeah.
Are there any kind of key insights that you found with your top agents? Is there something that they do that is just different out there in their marketplace that maybe they're executing on right now that's really helping them get an edge?
I think that it's the agents that focus on the results that they've produced rather than what they're going to do that will set them apart. So let me give you an example of that. If we look, if we look at the market right now, because think about this: if you're hiring somebody, Mark, and one walks in and they say, "Oh, you want me to be marketing director," and I was marketing director of this other company, and here's the results I produced for them, right? And then the second person comes in and they go, "Well, here's all the things I plan to do for you, Mark." "Well, what have you already done?" "Well, not much, but you know what I mean?" You're probably going to lean towards the person that's already produced the results, right?
Yeah.
So let's say, you're on, and we'll use listing as an example. And right now, I'm sitting in Toronto right now, and Toronto's got roughly 4 months of inventory, okay? So if you have 4 months of inventory, that means that 25% of the listings are selling every month.
That's right.
So do you think the consumer sitting in front of you knows that 25% are selling every month? They don't know that.
No.
Right? So all of a sudden you're sitting, you say, "So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I just want to show you some numbers here. This is from the real estate board. And, last month we had, 2,000 listings and we had 500 sold. That means 25% of the inventory is selling. So really we're sitting in a market right now where 1 out of 4 homes are selling every single month." And then you say, and the average list to sell ratio is, 98% or whatever it happens to be. And average number of days it's taken to sell is, whatever it happens to be. So this is if you just randomly choose a real estate agent, this is what your chances are. So what I want to do is share my results so far this year.
Mm.
And you start to now show your results where you're selling 80% in a 30-day period, right? And now all of a sudden they start to see, because the first part was they didn't know those numbers before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And by the way, you might have to use somewhat of a micro market. Maybe it's condo building or maybe it's waterfront, whatever you got to do, but you show them what's actually going on. And then if you're, a productive agent, and let's face it, most full-times are, because we do have, I think 26 or 27% of the agents in Toronto haven't sold a house this year, right? Then your results are probably going to be better, or your team's results are going to be better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just talking about, and you still got to talk about what you're going to do, don't get me wrong. But everybody, spends all their time talking about what they're going to do instead of talking about what they've already done for others. And I always say the most value you bring to a consumer is when they discover an insight they weren't aware of.
Mm.
When they discover that only 25% of the listings are selling every month, you're preparing them for what is possible. And you're showing them the problem they need to solve. And hopefully you're the solution to that, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's, when it comes to differentiation, that to me is what I see, a lot of top agents. It's one of our teachings, by the way, obviously, but that's what I see a lot of the top agents working with us. There's allowing them to separate themselves. And it's not about selling, it's about education.
Yeah. Yeah. And people want to be guided. They don't want to be asked what do you think you should do? It's like they want to be told in a way,
Yes.
based on all the data, and
Yes.
be led down the path from a market expert that they believe is sharp. So I love that approach of like being the market expert and showing them first.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then, to build on, said in a different way. I mean, you're saying this is to like sell the vacation. Alex Hormozi talks about that quite a bit, rather than the trip, right? Like, rather than all the features of, the plane trip, there is going to be this, and this. It's going to be like, here's the vacation, here's what it's going to look like. And that's where what you're talking about with the results, like
Right.
share the results is key. And if you can educate them first, I think that sets it up in a very strong way. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, so now agents, they're listening to all your advice, they're executing, they're making, really great money, right? Money's coming in, and there's so many things real estate agents can invest in today. And, that's one of the things with a real estate investment firm. We have to go through 200 opportunities, 200 different properties to find that one golden nugget to be able to get the outsized returns. And so that's just like one example of like so many different opportunities out there for you and for listeners that are listening. They're making money. What investing advice would you give them to be able to, make it so down the road, if they want to sell in real estate, they still can, but they don't have to, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Well, if I started all over again, Mark, I'm 63 now. So if I went back to when I was, 24, when I started real estate, I would have bought a lot more real estate.
Yeah.
Like I was just working so hard and wasn't thinking about investing. I was young, having a good time selling and having a good time spending my money. You know what I mean? Like, you're in your 20s, right? But if I had to go back, that's one thing that I would have done. Like, I own real estate, but I mean, I would have bought a lot more. Yeah, I would have just, because I look at real estate and I just think to myself, like, it's such a great investment long term. It's not a good short term investment because it's very hard. It's expensive to buy and expensive to dispose of, right? So
that's right.
You got a lot of costs. But in terms of long term, I think it's one of the greatest investments in the world. Where on earth can you put, say, whatever, pick a number, put 25% down on a property or whatever the number is, doesn't matter, but you get capital appreciation 100% of it. It's crazy, right?
It's playing the bank in a way. I mean, with the fractional reserve, you put $1 in for deposit. They can lend out $10. That's leverage. But what Richard's saying there is you put $1 in and you can leverage something 4 to 5 times greater and benefit from that full upside.
Yeah.
And that is something I think, Richard, that a lot of people don't really think about how leverage they're comparing to the stock market or whatnot, but that leverage point just puts it into a whole other realm. And then, not to mention, I mean, we could talk a whole hour on all the benefits of real estate. That's just one aspect of it.
Yeah. There really is. And not only that, then, you got this great asset there. You can borrow against the asset and you can do it again and over. Like, it's just long-term, I do, personally, I do mortgages and, I got some real estate and things like that. And it's all good. And, plus I, got some, I would consider myself well diversified.
Yeah.
But at my age, I think it's a good idea to be somewhat well diversified, right?
Yeah.
Because my runway is not quite as long as, some of the 25.
You look really good though for that. So whatever you're doing, well, let me ask you this: what's helping you stay young? What's helping you stay young? Because I mean, you're vibrant. Just look at. Yeah. I mean, I know you had said earlier you're working out, but what do you think is helping with that?
Well, there's no question. I've been a pretty regular exerciser since I was probably mid-20s, right? I don't work out hard or anything, but I'm not, but I make sure that I get in the gym every day. But I think I'm just excited about the future. Like a lot of people ask me when I turn 60, because I've been doing this 25 years, and a lot of people say, well, when are you going to retire? I go, retire to what? I don't understand what I'm going to do. I like to play golf, Mark. I like to play golf on Wednesday afternoons and Saturday morning because that's great. But what do I do for the rest of the week? I like my job. I like the business. My daughter's involved. My wife's involved. My daughter's taken a more senior role in the company, which I'm so excited about. But I like, making my dreams come true. I like going on holidays. I like making memories. I like, I want my kids to have really cool experiences where I create great memories for them and my grandkids. Like, I get excited with that stuff, right? Like, I'm just not prepared to sit in a rocking chair yet, I guess. There's too much to do.
Well, you talk to some of these guys that, that's kind of that Freedom 55. They work their whole life and then they're retiring at, 60 or whatever, and they're going and they're laying on the beach for a week or two max, and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm bored out of my mind. What am I going to do? And I think that just from a lifespan standpoint, it's critical that you act like you need to be on mission with something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it is playing golf full time, but you have a mission of getting down your score to X. You have a goal. I think that's key. And I'm in the same boat, Richard. Like, people ask me that, when are you going to take back? You're starting this other investment firm and, real estate is like all this. When's it going to be enough? I'm like, seriously? I like, there's something up on my wall. There's a saying here. It says, it's a noble cause to build a great company, companies that are worthy of serving people with excellence. Jim Collins, I believe, said that.
Yeah.
And that to me is that's fun. Building something. And so, but the key I found with that is and it goes back to what you're saying at the beginning, is surround yourself with great people so that it is fun when you go in. And if you do that, it'll be good to know that you can retire if you want. But for me, it's like, people ask that. I'm like, maybe I'll cut back the number of hours. You can do some more traveling and stuff, but I want to be engaged in this because this is just way too much fun going through.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. You think about people that a lot of them will play games at night or on the weekends with their family. Like, pick a game. I don't know, Monopoly, euchre, poker. I don't care. Pick a game, right? And it's like, and every game, if you think about it, that you play, which you're playing for your leisure, is full of challenges. Because that's what you're trying to do in a game. You're trying to overcome the problems and you're trying to win, right? But I look and say, well, to me, isn't business the game? Like, I look at it and say, listen, if you can go out into the world and figure out a way to provide great value to people that they want to invest in you by, giving you money, and I go, what a really cool thing. So, that to me, like, I'm not I don't play, like I play golf a couple days a week, but I don't play cards. I don't do any of that sort of stuff. Because this is my game. Like this, I get up and I get to play this really fun game every day.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's not like I grind as much as I used to. Like I used to travel 130, 140 days a year. I don't do that anymore.
Right.
But you keep readjusting your business in a way that you get to bring the value that you now have. See, I have a wisdom that I have now that I didn't have 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, how can you bring value to the company that you're serving? And it's probably going to evolve over the years, and that's fine.
Yeah. 100%. And that's, for an individual agent, I remember my brother Thomas came to me when he first started, and he said, "Hey, Mark, I just want to get good." Like he was young. I think he was early 20s anyways. He came and said, "Hey, I just want to get good." Because this is what I was putting through the beginning, training phase, Richard. Yeah. And, he sees me and Joel, my other brother, was in the business at the time. And then Thomas sees us, doing well. He's like, "I just want to get good." I'm like, "Listen, if you do, keep showing up every day and you work, you're going to get there." And I mean, I look at him now and he does like over 100 sales a year. He goes home. He has dinner every day with his family. He has breakfast every day with his family. He takes a day off every week. He does more in less time. As a new agent, you get that first offer and it's like, cancel everything. I'm going to stay in the office and wait for the other agent to reply. But as you start getting more efficient and you start leveling up on the things and you can get quicker with it, you can be negotiating 6 or 7 sales and keep everything straight and go home for dinner and get everything done in time and do an excellent job, right?
Yeah.
So if you're listening out there and it's like, "Oh, I'm an individual, I don't know if I could," it's like, listen, you can do it. It's figuring out the most important things to get the maximum result with the least amount of effort and doing the things in a way that, clients, they see value in it. So Richard, I seriously, I could talk to you like this time just flew by, and I'm sure all the listeners that are listening right now, they'll say the same thing. Is like, wow, that was quick. But I got to get to rapid fire here because I told you we'll keep it under an hour, so we want to keep that commitment. So you ready? Rapid fire. Get 3 questions.
Let's do it.
All right. So favorite book. What's your favorite book that's had the biggest impact in your career?
Well, I hate being boring because I'm sure a lot of people say this, but Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Yeah. I actually have a personally signed copy right here by Napoleon Hill. Actually signed by him.
Oh, really? Wow. What'd you pick that up? Was that
my dad bought it for me. It was January 1995. He somehow found a book signed by Napoleon Hill and bought it for me, and you can see it's ripped and everything. A little bit hard copy. Isn't that something?
That's great. It's funny you say that book because it's funny. I didn't even know you were going to say that. And look at this. Look this is the original Think and Grow Rich book. Yeah. That was, if you're listening on podcasts, you can go on YouTube and you'll see the like it's ripped apart. And this was back in 2007 when I started, and I still have that same copy. Funny. Yeah, that was we didn't even prepare that. That was
no.
All right, cool. So that's favorite book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. All right, 3 words that best describe you, that your closest people that know you really well. What are the 3 words that they would use to describe you?
I'd say husband, father, grandfather, but that's not what you're looking for. I know that's not what you're looking for because they're my 3 most important roles. I would say disciplined. People would say I'm very, very disciplined. People generally say that I'm a visionary, right? So in the company, I call it visionary leadership. I would say, so discipline, visionary. A third one, what would people say about me? I'm going to say structured in the sense that I follow a structure.
Yeah.
Right? I follow a system. I follow a schedule. So the people would probably say like I'm very structured. Like my assistant handles my calendar, but I literally put blocks in my calendar and then she has to work around those blocks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that's
I'll take appointments here, no appointments here. Because again, I really like time I like time to myself in the morning to do all my appointments myself, and then appointments with others in the afternoon. I don't like appointments till 10 o'clock. If I'm going to do I don't want to be in the office. I don't want to have to be in the office till 10 o'clock.
yeah.
And so if I'm coming in and I'm doing some type of work that requires me to meet with somebody in the office, I won't see anybody before 10 sort of thing. I don't know. I got so very structured. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that I think to be running like a huge organization like you're doing right now, Richard, I think you have to you got to learn that, and you've obviously done that. So that's great. We got the 3 words there. And last question, what advice would you give to listeners that maybe are just starting out in real estate?
Well, I would say, first of all, that the opportunity that you have is crazy big. I hope you see it, right? I would say don't lose sight of the opportunity you have in this industry, because, it's pretty well all I've done my whole life. And I've seen, people like yourself, Mark, that have done amazing things in our industry, and where it has led you now. You think about that, right? And not only that, you can build any type of business you want. You don't have to build a big team. You can pick the kids up at 3 o'clock every day from school if you want. It's it done properly. It offers you a lot of freedom. So know what you want to build and then build it, but get really clear on what it is you want to build.
So good. Great advice. Guys, we got there's just so many nuggets in this recording here. Richard, if the listeners, they want to reach out to you, maybe connect to find a little bit more about your coaching program, what's the best way they can reach out?
Yeah, just go to richardrobbins.com. That's our website. And all our social channels are on there as well. So everything is on our site. We've actually just launched a new app. I should tell them about this. So if you're sitting on a desktop, go to RRI.app. We just launched it, myrri.app. Or if you're on your phone or an iPad, you can download the app. And we have a free version where we provide all kinds of really cool content through that app as well.
Great. Well, we'll actually put that in the notes here as well. So that'll be easy for them if you're listening you can go in and click in and you'll see that. Richard, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was awesome.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate the opportunity, buddy. It was fun.
Right on. And thank you guys for listening to the show. Please share and subscribe to the channel. I love you guys, and keep on going full out.